Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tabletop Tavern Tips Uncut or Roll for Insight Season 2. By this point, I still haven't figured out what we're going to call this, but whatever the case, today we are joined by CritCrab once again. Say hi.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
I'm CritCrab. You may know me as the internet crab that tells the stories.
Yeah, you may know him. I'm pretty sure everyone knows who you are on this channel. But if you don't, yes, you can check out CritCrab's channel in the description and also linked in the cards. But anyway, CritCrab, today we have picked out, you have picked out 5 problem players to talk about. Are you ready to go?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I am.
These were chosen, handpicked by you, because Dead the Drake just got whatever's left because he didn't respond first. So this is, I feel like,
yes.
do you have, I'm curious, what made you want to pick these 5? Are these just the ones you've read about the most, or the ones you've experienced the most? Do you have, beef?
Okay, here's what I will say. Yes. Yes to all of that. I personally have experience and beef with, oddly, pretty much all except Cheater and Power Gamer.
Dang.
Oh wait, was I not supposed to drop those just yet, as names?
No, you're good, you're good.
Don't know if it's a spoiler warning or whatever. Yeah, a lot of these I've had personal experiences with, and it really did, actually kill my love of DMing and running the game for a while. But eventually, I kind of came up and out of it, and it was really good.
Sweet. Yeah, most of these, I think these are the more, the only one on the whole list, including the one that Den the Drake got, the one that I would think is, completely, very bad is the Flirt, which is, your incel nice guy types. But the rest of these are,
Oh, yeah.
The Instigator might not be so bad. The Instigator is pretty bad. And I think that's the one we're starting with. But the rest of them are
Yes, I believe it is.
Yeah, the rest of them are just kind of, or Cheater. Cheater's pretty bad. Okay, anyway, point is, Instigator. Instigator is the one we're starting out with. May I define Instigator real quick for you?
Yeah.
The audience. The Instigator, guys. The Instigator is the person who is constantly provoking either the Dungeon Master or the rest of the party, whether in character or out of character, but it's usually in character. This is the guy who's killing off the random NPCs, who's making the jokes that he knows are going to piss off the rest of the party. He's just there for his own enjoyment through annoying other people. That's at least what I think of when I think of the Instigator. So CritCrab, this is rough. This is a rough one. This is hard to deal with because
this is a rough one.
They're trying to piss you off.
Oh yeah, exactly. I see it as, it's as with all of these, there are the really extreme versions of them, and then there are the ones who do their problem thing ever so subtly to where it's and this is especially true with the Instigator. This is almost unique to the Instigator, but not really, is that they can do it in such a way where you're the dick if you call them out, but it's it's enough to ruin the experience for everybody, if you know what I mean by that.
Yeah, the small things, if it's something super personal to you that the group doesn't know about, but the Instigator, if they're a friend of yours.
Exactly.
And this will often happen with friends, they're just messing around, but as we all know, as Dungeon Masters, it can be kind of hard to play D&D with somebody who's just there to mess around. You need engagement in the actual game itself.
Exactly, yes. And the Instigator is one of the few on this list that I think has a real, way of having fun. But if the Instigator is the problem person, then their way of having fun is just different from everybody else's. Yeah. They probably, as long as they're not trying to step on people's toes, which they usually are, but I'd say that's about half of them. The other half are just doing things impulsively to the detriment of the party just to make something interesting happen.
Yep, and I think that the way to solve this, I don't know about you, but I think it's just a cadent conversation, what was it that Taking Twice says? Stern parenting.
Yes, I was going to say just that, because the Instigator also was the easiest one for me to fix. It was. I had an Instigator player in one of my first D&D campaigns. It got all the way up to level 20, so obviously the issue was smoothed over with everybody still intact and feeling good. But the Instigator is also usually a new player that just doesn't have a firm grasp on the consequences of their actions at that point. It can not be, but the Instigator can also be at that weird stage of being a new player when they get kind of a big head and think they can get away with whatever they want because they haven't really faced consequences because they were either too new to, or their DM maybe shielded them from a few just to, keep them getting into the game. Like it happens with almost everybody I've introduced to the game. Is they're a great player at the very beginning, but then they hit this weird phase when they've played enough to understand their capabilities, but not enough to understand their limitations.
Oh yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Exactly, yeah. So what ends up happening is, and this happened with one of mine, this is a personal like horror story of mine, but it didn't make a channel or anything because it didn't make a video because there's not enough meat to it. One of my first and like best players I've ever had hit that exact patch. It was like a few months into us playing. She was just kind of going crazy. Just picking fights with guards, stealing stuff, just, being chaotic. Yeah, exactly. Instigating everything. Ends up getting thrown in jail where, she picks fights with all the inmates and the guards. Really just like pushing things. And I could tell, I was just like, she isn't trying to ruin the game. She's just having fun. This is like, she's just, going crazy. But it got to the point where I was like, look, if her character doesn't face consequences now, like, it's going to get somehow worse than this. So, yeah, like, I tried to do it in a nice way, but the idea is she has such bad behavior in prison that she basically gets fails to escape and dies.
Dang.
And that was my first player kill, by the way. Character kill. I'm not a murderer. Anyways.
Die player. Instigators must be executed.
I'm not a murderer. Quote, murderer. But
that's exactly what a murderer would say.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, it was so interesting because the tone that gets set when you kill a player character.
It's very sorrowful.
It does. It feels heavy, even though this character had existed only for like a little while. She ended up making a new character that she continued the campaign in. But yeah, it was like you played this character for all of 4 sessions, done nothing but cause the rest of the party mental pain as they tried to move the quest along, and you're just dragging ass, killing everybody, picking fights with everybody. But somehow, like, you could just feel the mood lower as I, the DM, had to say, like, your character is now dead. It was that largely adjusted the mood. And suddenly, after, like, what happened was afterwards, we talked, right? Mm-hmm. And we're just like, look, do you want to make a new character? And, of course, she's like, oh, yeah, of course. However, I think that's when she decided, like, oh, I can die in this game. Like, it's always something can happen, but whether or not it will happen is something that's entirely dependent on the players, like, what they personally think they should be getting out of the game. And for her in particular, I don't think she expected it. Like, it was a power fantasy. So walking in with that and just a genuine conversation, like, look, losing a character sucks, but that can happen, and you were kind of like asking for it. And she agreed, like, oh, well, yeah, in retrospect, I was being an idiot, but still, that's what happens.
Yeah, and that's why I think that a nice conversation outside the game is always like the first solution. I've always said that, like, in-game consequences aren't usually not going to solve out-of-game problems. Maybe this one, because it's just, well, as you said, like, this is just somebody who misunderstood how the game itself worked. So maybe an in-game consequence here will work, but I will guarantee that a small out-of-game conversation, low-key, will usually solve most issues with Dungeons & Dragons. And of course, if it doesn't, then you might need to consider that maybe this player is not fit for the game. But luckily for you, I mean, it just turned out to just be a player who didn't understand, like, the consequences in Dungeons & Dragons, and it all worked out. So congratulations.
Yeah, semi-new player, yeah. So I have exactly. To pivot back to the main point of the Instigator is that the Instigator is the one on this list that I feel the most for and that I have the most, like, empathy for and I understand the most, because I don't think of, like, all instigators as, like, bad players. They just want to have fun and they want to go a little crazy. It's usually to the detriment of other people, and that needs to be stopped. But still, if you're, like, instigating and just causing problems in game, I'm far more likely to actually want to have a genuine conversation with you than, say, a cheater or, like, a spotlight hog, right?
Spotlight Hog is our next problem player, and Spotlight Hog, can I define them real quick for our audience? I'm gonna do this for all of them, by the way.
Yes, please do.
Okay, so the Spotlight Hog is somebody who is constantly trying to get the spotlight onto their character. This is your main character syndrome people. The one with the crazy, well, maybe not crazy powerful character mechanically, but maybe crazy powerful character story-wise or backstory-wise. The player who constantly wants the eye to be on their character instead of on the entire party as a whole. Now, of course, naturally, there are times where, as we've seen, characters will take a spotlight in their own, like, little story arcs. But the Spotlight Hog is a character who never wants to let the spotlight go. That's the problem. So, how, sir, do you handle Spotlight Hogs in your own D&D games?
Yeah, okay. This one is just so tricky because it's interesting how these ones scale, because the first two especially are, again, people who have a genuinely good reason to enjoy the game. It's just taken to an extreme.
And it's
the
making
instigator
the other
likes the
not
freedom.
have fun.
Yeah. It's taken to an extreme, and it's to the detriment of everybody else, usually the entire campaign and the other players. The Spotlight Hog enjoys roleplay and likes feeling like a character in like a movie or a book or something, in the same way that the Instigator enjoys like the freedom and like the chaos that they can cause, which is in D&D, it's like unmatched. You can do some crazy stuff you just cannot do in any video game, and it's awesome. So again, like that, the Spotlight Hog is just the person who's like, I can play like a main character figure that's perfectly written exactly the way I want them to be. However, that causes some, yeah, exactly, and it's the main character part. It's important for the players to feel like they're, you know, the heroes. They're the most important people in the game right now, usually. That as a general rule. There's a very important reason for the players to be in the game. The Spotlight Hog, though, the Spotlight Hog is, unlike the Instigator, you can talk to the Instigator, usually, I'd say at least half the time, in my experience. But the Spotlight Hog is way harder to talk to productively, and it's because when you're role-playing, you're really, like, putting yourself out there. You're being a little bit vulnerable.
Vulnerability,
it takes
yeah.
a certain amount of vulnerability.
And emotional honesty, like you're playing a character, and a lot of people say like, "Oh, my character's completely separate from me." But I mean, I'm just gonna call that the vast majority of people. No, like obviously you're playing a different person, and you need to be able to separate. But all characters are going to have a little bit of you in them because you're playing them, and the vast majority of the time you made them.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. It's vulnerability. It's sort of exposing like a piece of yourself to everybody else.
And so when you're critiquing
that's why
it feels a little bit more personal.
It feels like a personal attack on them. It really does. Even if you're not criticizing anything about their character, but just like the way they're role-playing the character is making everybody else uncomfortable.
It's like, it's not just making them uncomfortable, it's also just not letting the other people play in the first place. Like, I had a Spotlight Hog who was like, you know, the only person doing any of the roleplay conversations. You know, he would like trample over other players who were trying to like talk to NPCs so that he could talk to NPCs, and he didn't want to let that go because like he thought that was like the way you play, because he didn't think the other players were role-playing well enough or doing it good enough to like justify them talking instead of him. And I was like, well, that's a serious problem because their role-playing is just fine. Like, yeah, they don't do fancy character voices or whatever, but it's okay. Like, they don't need to do character voices like myself or you. They're trying to play the game, and that's a big problem. Now, obviously, not all Spotlight Hogs are going to have that mentality. A lot of them are just people who are very enthusiastic and don't see that they're kind of trampling over other players. But, like, you need to have, again, solid conversation with the Spotlight Hog and to make sure that everyone gets a little chance to play the game.
I will say, the Spotlight Hog of anybody else on this list are going to be the hardest people to talk to about this because of how much you're going to need to mind their feelings. I understand that it's like, you know, it's cool to just say like, well, you know, I don't really care about how they personally like feel about it. They're causing a problem and I need to put a stop to it. It's like, okay, that's cool, but this is still a game, and you need to be mindful that they really did put themselves out there in your game, and they felt safe enough around you and like your party to really step into their character and like live through them in the game.
Yeah.
So
practically, the good old-fashioned way to do this, if you've ever like been in a work environment, working in like a group setting, I think the good old way to do this is the compliment sandwich. Start with the compliment, then the critique, then the compliment. Like, compliment the roleplay first. Like, hey, you did a great job with the roleplay. I'm really happy that you're getting into your character, but you tend to trample over other players. And then end off with, hey, your roleplay is still awesome, though. Like, that is a good way to deliver
I think that's
the critique.
amazing.
Deliver the critique in a clean way, but also, like, make sure that to acknowledge the fact that their roleplay is good. Now, of course, make sure to, like, actually critique them. Like, don't hold it back. Like, in the middle there, make sure to actually say, like, hey, you are trampling over other players, but putting those two compliments there, make sure that they also know that what they're doing is not entirely bad. You don't want to stop them from role-playing at all. You don't want to go on the other side.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's the good old way.
That's another thing. Back to like the compliment sandwich, which I think is just a really, really good way to deliver unsavory news to somebody.
In general, yes.
Oh, yeah. What I've always found works for me personally, I read this in a book somewhere, but it's replacing the word but with and. It's like you said earlier, hey, I really like that you're role-playing, you're doing a really good job stepping into your character, and if we could get the other, characters, the other players to come out of their shell a bit more, give them a bit more leg room so that they can also experience the game in this way, I think that would be amazing, and then follow it up with another compliment.
So good. That's so good.
Oh yeah. I'm just kind of that way.
We just solved Dungeons and Dragons, dude.
We just solved Dungeons and Dragons.
This all is why... RPG horror stories right there, dude.
Oh yeah.
This is the formula.
This is why Crispy's Tavern is actually my secret best friend, because we always go on mysteries town to town, solving Dungeons and Dragons related mysteries.
Yeah, this is it. We have cracked the code.
Yeah, we're like the Sam and Dean of D&D horror stories.
Yeah. Moving on to one that's a bit harder. All right, we're leveling up. We're moving on to the next stage. Mm-hmm. The cheater.
All right, here we go.
The cheater.
Ooh.
Nice and simple. This is the guy who's faking his dice rolls. This is the guy who tells you he's got a natural 20, but in fact you didn't see it. He swiped the dice off the table right before you saw it. This is the guy who lies about his spell DC, which is hard to do. I don't know why you do that, but I've seen it happen.
Oh yeah, no, I've seen it all, dude.
Oh yeah.
The cheater. It's like they have this weird. I know that I try to like see the good player in a lot of these sort of that guy archetypes. However, this one specifically, I would say, has the clearest like double edge, because on one hand they care about your game enough to cheat in it. On the other hand, they are caring way too much to the point where they would cheat, and it's like, okay, I
still understand, like, why are you cheating in Dungeons and Dragons?
It's like, what's the point even? Why are you even playing the game?
Like, it's the point. What? You're supposed to fail sometimes. That's the whole purpose of the game.
If you succeeded like every time, what is the point? Actually, why are you rolling dice? Why are you not writing a book? It's
like, the Dungeon Master, a lot of people say, oh, well, the Dungeon Master fudges the rolls. Like, I hear DMs do that a lot. First and foremost, not all DMs do that. Like, I know it's in the DMG, but not a lot of not all Dungeon Masters fudge dice rolls. I will not confirm nor deny that either one of us do that. But, not all Dungeon Masters do that, for starters. And also, the Dungeon Master is trying to build up the story of the game itself. They are the Dungeon Master. You, however, are a player that is a completely different ball game.
Oh, exactly. No, being a player is such a vastly different position from the DM, while the player is cheating at their rolls to gain an edge or boost themselves, half the time, most of the time, the vast majority of the time the DM fudges a roll, it's to nerf himself.
Yeah, so the players don't die.
It's to shield you from a hit. Yeah, it's to protect you from a hit.
Now, of course, DMs never tell your players that, ever. Never, ever.
As the golden...
golden
do not. That kills everything.
Destroy.
That breaks the entire illusion. Ever admitting it as a DM again, I may or may not have. I won't admit to that.
Yeah,
but one thing that I do.
Ever. No.
One thing that I do. I do not actually. I have never fudged a roll before ever. That being said.
Totally.
Exactly. You understand.
I understand.
But one thing that I do you get it with DMs who like roll behind a screen, roll on art, like roll 20. But me personally, I remember last time I was on your podcast, I described my campaigns as what I like to call like, bloodier adventure time. It's generally lighter hearted, just kind of fun and goofy, right? Of course, serious moments. It's what it is. But the general tone is kind of, uppity.
Goofy.
Just heroes on an adventure, save the day. Now, that's when it's campaigns like that I really do. I like to roll out in the open. I like the players, all their eyes are glued to my die roll, and then I kind of toss in the air and they all can see what it is. It adds to a big like shock element, like anticipation. Of course, that has led to some really awful high rolls, but the players know it's authentic and everybody at the table has an immediate reaction to watching the die hit the table. I really like it. I like it more than rolling behind a screen sometimes, but when I'm running my campaigns that are more serious, require a lot more immersion, getting into it, I would say games with maybe darker themes or just a more serious tone, that's when I like to hide it behind a screen to add that layer of like intrigue, right?
Mm-hmm.
I notice now that I've gone completely off the topic of just cheaters. Let me find a way to sneak my way back to the main topic. Let me see. Cheaters, I would say, while the Spotlight Hog is the hardest to talk to because you really don't want to hurt them, the cheater is the hardest to talk to because I would say a little more than half of them, like a good majority of them, you're not going to be able to talk them out of it.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
What they want to do in the game is so vastly separated from what the game is actually about. If they don't care about the element of randomness, they just want to win all the time. They do not care about the rules. That's all they want. Talking to them about it isn't going to kill the fact that that's still what they want to do.
I think you should try, but at the end of the day, like when you catch someone cheating, it also is just rude, Like it's almost like I think it's kind of like the Spotlight Hog times 10 because it's also the cheater is also taking away like the epic moments of Dungeons and Dragons. Like what's the point of, oh my god, you rolled a nat 20 when the cheater is just faking it. And also like when other players want to do cool stuff, the cheater will has, dice rolls on a whim that allow them to do all the cool stuff, but cooler. It always felt like, to me, the cheater takes away so much from both the DM and the players. Also, they clearly have no respect for the dungeon master who worked really hard to create this game and to run this game for them if they're just going to cheat their way through it. I mean, you said that before, like they care about the game and they care about themselves winning in it, but in my opinion, when you cheat, you're showcasing to your DM that you don't care about them, like the person running the game, because you clearly have no respect.
Oh yeah,
for, like them and their encounters and the story they worked hard to create for you, because you're cheating your way through it.
Exactly. It's a complete lack of respect for the person running the game, the people playing the game, the entire structure of the campaign, and like the spirit, the nature of Dungeons and Dragons.
It's lame. Don't cheat.
It's lame. It's boring to cheat. I mean, it's like, what should I say? All the best D&D stories I have, the coolest stories, right? They always spring from a failure or something goes wrong, right?
Yeah.
And then they have to like work their way out of it. The main conventional plan that was supposed to work, by all accounts should have worked, have failed. And now they need to like pull themselves up. They need to figure out some off the wall insane plan to, complete the mission. That's when it gets cool. And you're depriving yourself of that for no reason.
Why? Why are you doing that? It's like the most fun.
So it's they are and that's what I was saying. Like it's going to be talk to them, but in my opinion, in my experience,
if they keep on cheating, dude, they gotta go, man. I'm sorry. Like if you talk to them and they cheat again, nuh-uh.
It's like that they're so far removed from what the game is actually good for. It's like inviting somebody to your Minecraft world and all they do is like hunt you with a bow while you're trying to mine. It's like
lame.
We're not. Yeah, exactly. Like that's not why we play this game. We don't care. We don't like that.
Well, unless it's like Hunger Games or survival games.
I'm talking like survival world or something. If
I invite you to they blow up your house that you worked for like
exactly.
Who does that?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like everybody sneaks around each other's houses and steals some shit. It's like, okay.
Little
But that's
pranks.
about as far as it goes.
Little pranks, but you know, you're not like nuking, you're not lavaing. It's just a dick move, man. Same thing with cheating in some D&D game. We're just talking about Minecraft now.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's on my mind too because I'm building up I'm in my modded survival world. I'm building up my first ever my second house because I built my first house next to a forest that was completely canopied, so it's filled with bad stuff. So I was like, oh, that's stupid.
Oh, that's cool.
I gotta move. So I moved to a desert because there's no canopy in the desert. So I'm building my first ever desert house in all the years I've played this game. So I'm very excited. It's gonna look cool.
That's so cool. What I really like doing is I like going to either beaches and building a beach house. I don't know.
I built so many beach houses.
Crab Lakes Beach. Yeah. But what I really like doing is building elaborate tree houses in the jungle.
See, I had a treehouse,
like with bridges and
I had monsters climbing up the staircase. I had creepers at my foot. Like a creeper nuked the top of the platform, so it made the custom tree look so horrible. I was so pissed, dude. I was mad.
Oh, bro.
I was so mad.
Yeah, no.
You have no idea.
That is awful, dude.
Don't play with zombie awareness if you want an easy time playing Minecraft. Zombie awareness mod, great mod if you want a challenge, but if you want it to be easy, don't download that.
What's zombie awareness?
Basically, every time you take every mob, like in the couple chunks, can see lights. So if your house is lit up, they can come for you.
Oh.
And if you're bleeding, they can smell you. And creepers can see you through walls, so they can blow up the wall and come into your place. So it's basically mob siege. It's intense.
Yeah.
If you think Minecraft is too easy and you want it to be a little bit harder, that is a really cool mod to download. Like, they'll bring in skeletons. If you're hiding on a platform, skeletons will come in, try to shoot you down, spiders to climb up. I mean, mobs will have tactics, and they'll be able to climb upstairs now, so they're smart enough to climb upstairs. It's really cool.
No. That sounds really cool, but in a terrifying way.
Yeah, it makes the game significantly more difficult, let me tell you.
Are the Endermen any different? I mean, they don't start as hostile, so maybe not. I don't know.
No, they're not. It's creepers, zombies, and skeletons that are affected at base, but you can go into the settings and make it so Enderman. I mean, that sounds awful. That sounds so.
I know. I just want to know what a hostile, aggressively tactical Enderman would play like.
I personally have this is my own stuff, so I made this myself, but I made it so that Endermen remove items from your inventory, have a 10% chance to remove the item you're holding from your hand, because they could take blocks. I don't see why they couldn't take something out of your arm. They inflict blindness on a hit, and they can also teleport you.
Whoa! That's actually cool.
That is terrifying, because you're blind, you just find teleporting, you don't know where they're coming from now, and of course zombie awareness is also on, so you've got 10 million zombies coming up your ass. It's intense.
That is intense. That's incredibly intense.
So yeah, every night I just hide.
Yeah, that is smart. That is smart. It seems like with this monster awareness, the best thing you could do is actually build a castle or build something with inner walls and outer walls so you can't get blown up.
Or have a moat. I have a moat now. I'm next to a lake.
A moat. And then a drawbridge or something.
No, I have a drawbridge. No bridge. Okay, there's no bridge. All right?
Yeah,
they're
I know you can't, but I don't know. I like that forces people to think with actual medieval tactics.
It's smart. It's pretty cool. I like it. Also, caves they're so scary.
They gotta be. They gotta be.
Also, I think there's a setting. I didn't turn it on because I'm not, but there's a setting where they can destroy torches and windows, and I'm like, no,
If they can destroy torches and windows, it's over for Steve. There's nothing for him.
I'm done. I'm dead. But anyway, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. We're gonna take a break from our Minecraft podcast to talk about this little niche game. Niche game called Dungeons and Dragons. I feel like it deserves more spotlight.
Yes, deserves a spotlight. Yeah. We're gonna take away from the other niche, small indie game, Minecraft, and talk about the obscure 80s forgotten classic Dungeons and Dragons. Power gamers.
Power gamers. Power gamers,
Give me a sec.
I think, is a really good place to go from cheater, because a power gamer is like a cheater but with hope.
Yeah,
I would say. Because for one, they're not cheating.
The cheater is somebody who's breaking the rules to get an advantage. The power gamer is somebody who uses the rules to build a super powerful character, and your warlock paladin multi-class darkness crit farm build or something like that. Honestly, I think this one's the most manageable of the bunch.
Elaborate.
I think, okay, here's the thing. The only reason the power gamer is a problem for me, it's not because they're doing anything wrong. It's just because, from a logistical standpoint, if you have one power gamer and the rest have very average builds, it can be hard to balance the game because, one, the other players, they're not getting to do super cool things in combat. They're never going to outdamage the crazy paladin, warlock, multi-class, darkness, crit farm tank, right? But at the same time, like, the power gamer is just doing what they see as fun. They're just making a fun build for their character. And let's make a clear distinction between power gamers and build crafting. Like, have you seen D&D Shorts, Will? We had him on the show once. But he was a really cool dude. British guy with a big beard.
Yeah, Oh, yeah, okay. I've seen a few of his shorts.
Yeah, he's a really cool guy. His series isn't really power gaming. Like, a lot of people say, like, oh my god, these are crazy, powerful builds. But, like, he said on the podcast, and we were talking about this, a lot of his builds are weird things you could do in D&D, and they're D&D builds. Like, you're build crafting around a central mechanic, everything has synergy, you're picking stuff to fulfill a certain goal. But at the end of the day, like, a lot of those builds, they're going to be powerful in some situations, but not all situations, and that's the way D&D and that's the way games should be designed. Like, sometimes you're going to be super strong, and sometimes it's not going to work out. Like, there was one build that he brought up where you have an Aarakocra warlock with crazy range on Eldritch Blast, so the Aarakocra can fly into the air and, like, snipe people from a distance. That's so powerful, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what happens when you're indoors?
Yeah.
What happens when the enemy has a bow and arrow? What happens when the enemy's a dragon? Like, well, shit.
Oh, yeah, the power gamer, it's interesting because on one hand, it's like you can say, just present challenges that the power gamer can't overcome on their own or like with violence, right? It's like the power gamer is at his worst at a table of new players. New players who are just getting into the game. Maybe they want to try some combat because that's the quickest and easiest attraction of the game.
And then you have the one power gamer who just crushes it.
Yeah, one power gamer. He's like, he's spending 15 minutes on his turn outlining all of his stats and like chain combo abilities. New players sitting there like, I just want to shoot the bow. Like, I just want to, I want to hit with the sword and cast, Eldritch Blast or
I think
something.
a true power gamer is somebody who is good in pretty much every situation. Like, there's nothing the DM can do. Like, outside of just making enemies being able to see through making every enemy able to see through magical darkness, which is kind of lame. Like, in order to, basically the power gamer is the player. In order to counter the power gamer, the DM needs to directly hinder their build through like a very specific way, which is lame. Like, just making all enemies immune to Sentinel, or making all enemies be able to see through darkness.
Yeah,
like,
because it feels like unearned difficulty. It feels like the DM is cheating.
It feels lame. And I think the way and
the power gamer will feel unfairly targeted.
Exactly, because they are being targeted, which
and it is pretty unfair.
Yeah, it's lame. Although it's just something that is just logistically problematic, which is why I think before the game or even during the game, like, you talk to power gamers just to say, hey, like, right now, I think you're going to be like a crazy powerful build, and you've pretty much won this campaign. There's nothing I can do against you. Can we consider some retools to maybe bring your character more in line with the rest of the party? And I think 99% of the time the power gamer will be okay with that happening. Unless you're in a campaign where the point is power gaming, like the point is to be crazy, insanely powerful, most people are going to be like, oh yeah, that's fine. Like, I understand. Like, at the end of the day, I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I would say there are cases where the power gamer only gets their fun by being the most powerful at the table. That's something worth considering.
Oh yeah, that's something that you need to watch out for, because that's a different version of main character syndrome or spotlight hog.
It is. It's just in combat. It's the spotlight hog, but for combat. They need to get all the kills. They see it as like a competitive PvE game. Mm-hmm, exactly. I need the most XP the biggest sword, all the magical abilities,
But like at
and
the
it
end
can
of the
be
day,
unmanageable.
I think that most people, because I mean, there's a big difference between combat and roleplay in the sense that roleplay is something that one I think makes up the majority of D&D playtime. Like I think the majority of most D&D games is spent in roleplay, not in combat. But I mean, I could be wrong about that. That's at least the
That's
way I
true for
run it.
mine.
But when you're role playing, I mean, role playing doesn't really have like a zeitgeist of I need to win this. Like role play is just role play. Whereas combat, like your goal is to win. That's your purpose. Combat has numbers and math and all of these abilities and some abilities that are meant to be chained together and work together as a build. And build crafting is a thing for a reason. Like combat does have a zeitgeist of I want to win, which will lead some people to power game, and a lot of them might just get carried away incidentally and not realize what it's doing to the game, and therefore be more amicable when you're talking to them, which is why I think the power gamer is easier to handle than the spotlight hog.
Yes, I would say also because at the same time, criticizing a power gamer, I use the word criticizing very interestingly because you're not criticizing them as a person, just the way they play.
Yeah, you're just like
Criticizing their
talking.
play style, trying to talk to them, help them understand, it's way less of a personal attack. They're not being vulnerable just by getting a giant sword smashing stuff. Half the time they won't even notice they're overshadowing people.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just if you tell them that's what they're doing, it's not going to be like you attacked a major part of them or like, them acting or, expressing themselves. I think that they would be way easier to talk to about it. And they have the highest chance of being okay with it and going along.
Yeah, who are very like experienced with this game. I think power games are also the people who are likely to understand.
If the power gamer is a really cool person, you really like playing with them, but you just know by talking to them and just knowing them as a person, all of that they're just never going to stop power gaming, right? It's like that's how they get enjoyment out of the game. But you still want to play with them. One-on-one DM to player D&D campaigns can be really cool. And I've run a ton of one-on-one D&D games. And
Yeah,
never
if you're
once...
okay with splitting, yeah, that's a great idea. If you're okay with splitting and you think that, like, if this player really does not want to let go of, like, the super powerful build, and you don't think that you can, like, rectify that with your campaign, I mean, yeah, that might be the solution, I do think, like, just keep in mind, like, this is, like, the final frontier, final solution if nothing else works, against all odds.
Yeah, exactly. It's just if they have no real chance of molding with the party well, which I don't see why they wouldn't be able to, because, like you said earlier, the power gamer is almost always really experienced and knows what they're doing.
And understands, like, the like, what you need to do to make a D&D game work, yeah.
Exactly. But, again, if some off-the-wall chance it just doesn't work out, one-on-one D&D campaigns or low player count campaigns, like 3 or less players, hugely underrated. It is amazing. I love them. They're my favorite way to run the game. 1 to 3 players. At that point, though, if you're playing with like one player, you need to give them a couple NPCs, and then it really does play like Fire Emblem, which I have no problem with.
Yeah,
I
that
really
might
like
be
Fire
awesome.
Emblem.
Honestly, like, that's a good idea.
It is awesome.
A power gamer one-on-one session might actually be, like, really crazy, because it also creates a really cool challenge for the DM to create interesting combat for that build. A lot of people being able to rationalize with themselves, that is a big thing. Like, we as people should be able to create solutions for ourselves, but the control freak is somebody who wants to create solutions not just for themselves but for everyone else. The control freak is that player who wants to minute control everything during character creation. This player is like, hey, wait, whoa, you can't make that character, that doesn't fit with the setting properly, without consulting the DM. The control freak is the player who goes, hey, wait, you can't create that build, that's not optimized enough. Or during the game, the control freak is telling other players how they roleplay their characters or what they should do in combat. This one's frustrating, not gonna lie.
Oh, yeah. This one is incredibly frustrating and probably, like, aside from the cheater, right? they're probably playing in the least amount of actual good faith. I mean, there's something to be said for, they just, unfortunately, they just don't have much faith in the rest of the party and their understanding, so they really do just need to step in and take control. And that's like the best case scenario, though.
But that's the only best case scenario.
Yeah, and that still is really bad and sucks and shows that they don't, again, they don't have faith in their fellow party members, no trust for anybody else. They need to get in there, assume control of everybody's characters, and make sure that they're playing the game according to his specifications.
Yeah, this player, man, I get really frustrated. And I see it all the time, too. Like, it's pretty common, especially online. You'll see players who, like, someone will post their character, and the player will respond with, "Oh my god." Like, just a random person will post, like, a picture of their character on the D&D Reddit. I deadass saw this, like, "Oh my god, your character is wearing that outfit? That is so ridiculous and unrealistic. Why would you even choose that outfit?" I'm like, this deadass is a random person talking to another random person. I'm just like, bro, what is your problem?
How do you make it this far in the hobby, dude?
Come on. Could you imagine playing with that guy? Like, oh my god. Like,
no, imagine.
Describe your character where, like has, I don't know, has shorts? Shorts are so impractical in a medieval setting.
It's like, dude, what the? I mean, okay, yeah, I'm not even. It's always the people who are way too focused on realism and historical accuracy.
It's just like focused on their own wants for the game. It doesn't even need to be realism.
Exactly. No, it's like the people who self-describe, I should say, as focused on realism or anything else, because it's like I'm fighting for realism in the game, but for some reason it's always lame. It's always stuff like, no, you can't dress that way. Minorities aren't allowed. Women can't do this, and I'm just like, what?
Stop.
Yeah, I'm like. What do you? It's always the lame stuff they want to be realistic about. It's never like cool army tactics or like It's never the cool stuff. It's always the lame neckbeard stuff.
Have you seen my D&D character Caroline?
No, I don't believe I have.
So she wears I remember this. I was oh my god, I left the group like soon after this happened, and I never talked about this because I was just like, this is so lame. Like, why would somebody say that? But I'll pop into the chat. This is what she looks like, right? This is the coolest thing I've ever received from a fan. I got this from a subscriber for free, and I was like, wow, that is the coolest thing ever. Thank you so much. That's my Google wallpaper now. Yeah.
That is the coolest thing I've seen in my life.
I know, right?
Like, I mean, as far as character art goes, that is so badass.
I know, she looks so cool. So anyway, I posted this to a D&D group I was in on Discord, and I got 2 people who were like, "Oh my god, that skirt is so impractical. How is she supposed to fight in that skirt and in those tights? Like, that is so ridiculous, so absurd. I would never allow that kind of character in my D&D game." I'm like, bro, come on.
No, here's the thing. That's so bad. Like, anything I tell people, like, this is especially true with new players who are a little bit worried about coming off they don't exactly know what's expected of them in the game, right? Mm-hmm. And something that I have to tell them, and I assume, I don't know, maybe they just want to put in a little extra effort because they're playing as the guy who will post them on Reddit. They're playing with me. But no, I won't actually. I don't know. Anyways, that being said, biggest thing I tell them whenever they're like, I don't know, can I do this? Or should I dress this way? Can I have like cool, like 2 colored eyes or like crazy hair?
Yes.
And the thing I tell them is, it's like, make your character as cool as you possibly can. Like, focus, don't care at all about like, realism. Like, why is your, you can't, technically elves don't get differently colored eyes or something like, I don't know. It makes no sense to me to force those limitations on yourself when they affect nothing.
Last place you should be playing in the box is Dungeons and Dragons, dude.
Exactly. It's like I've never understood it. I understand wanting your characters maybe if like the tone is a certain thing.
Of course. If
It's a
like the
grittier tone.
campaign, if you establish early on, like, hey, we're playing in Westeros, you can only play humans. Like that's reasonable. You know, that makes sense. I get that.
Yeah, definitely. Or it's like, hey, this campaign is more realistic, a bit more serious. As long as that's like understood going in. Like, I'd prefer everybody doesn't have anime hair. That would be really cool. And
You
yeah,
should
it's
see
like,
my
okay,
hair.
whatever. Yeah. But still, at the same time, it's just like for somebody who has nothing to do with the player or their game to step in and be like, no, this is my time to set your game right. Your hair can't be that way. You can't wear those kinds of pants. This is beautiful artwork. Love the artwork. But I'm going to now tear it apart for some reason. It makes no sense for me to do that.
Yeah,
What
control
what
freaks.
class is this character? Can I ask?
This class. Okay, this character is a rogue with the psionic subclass from Tasha. So she has little pink psychic knives, and she can teleport with them. And she's a changeling. So she can. But anyway, the control freak.
Yeah.
I think we lost
Oh
track.
yeah, the control freak. The control freak.
I think we should end off here. Don't try to
definitely.
control unless you and like the rest of the party have already agreed on what to do. Like I don't think we should stop people from trying to make adjustments in a D&D game. Like I don't think I what I'm worried about is when we talk about control freaks, like saying, hey, like you can't be a control freak, you know, don't do that. I'm worried that somebody will interpret that as, oh, I can't stop a problem player because if I try to control their character, I'm being a control freak. No, I think that we need to draw a fine line. Don't try to control things that are perfectly okay. Like some D&D, like a character's perfectly reasonable, cool outfit, or the way they build their character. You know, those things are perfectly okay, you know? But if somebody is ruining the game for the other players, like by being an incel or being a spotlight hog, like you as a dungeon master or even as a player, you're not being a control freak if you want to at least address that, if you want to talk about that. That's not being a control freak, that's being a good player, right? So I think we should draw that line.
Also, I should say, this is one of the rare problem players that I see as a bigger issue with dungeon masters.
Oh, yeah.
This is
Oh,
where you
yeah.
get railroading. This is where you get unnecessarily, like, especially railroading. That's the biggest one. But, you know, when the DM dips their fingers in way too hard when it comes to controlling how the players react to his game, it's insane. Again, I would say this problem is more of a dungeon master problem. However, it's still a big player problem nonetheless, and definitely deserves to be talked about more.
Oh yeah. So I think that's a good way to end this video. I kind of wish we ended on the Spotlight Hog solution because that was such a good. We did such a good job there. I'm so proud of us.
We did a really good job on that one. That was
pat yourself on the back. Give us a like for that.
No.
Can you pat yourself on the back? Is like claws make it possible?
It's a little difficult, but like sometimes when I'm like standing on a rock at the right angle,
my little round arms are kind of difficult. But anyway, if you guys enjoyed this episode of whatever we're gonna call this, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of our content, then you can subscribe to me, Crispy's Tavern, or you can subscribe to CritCrab. If you're not already subscribed to CritCrab, he makes awesome content all the time. And finally, if you want to leave your own tips or thoughts, go down to the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment more problems to let me know you made it to the end of the podcast. In essence, like, comment, subscribe. We will both see you all next time. Farewell.